Thank you for tuning in to the Real CP Show. I'm your host, CP. And today's topic, Transgendered Awareness Week. Sympathy and Agenda, Black History Week / month. Get over it games, right? Because that's what it is. It is a type of agenda or agendas. And there are people who know who they are. That know its agenda, especially supremacists, which is the most awesome mental manipulation force has ever existed. Let me go ahead and start by reading this article. But before I get to this article, understand that it is an insultingness to the American blacks, the ones who know that know. It is insult to the American black ancestors. It is insult to the ones of an elder age bracket of American blacks. Again, I'm not talking about numbers within American blacks, the ones that are gullible and naive and do not understand that there is an agenda of disrespectful insultingness going on right now. And they are utilizing also for certain ones within certain type of transness of movement. Because think about, there are certain numbers of blacks within the trans movement that are being used themselves and are being insulted, but with racial racism hatred, not because they are of trans first, but because they are black. And unfortunately, that there are certain numbers of black trans that don't understand that, with very few exceptions. And as you see on this particular video right here, the image, that this also person will be considered a trans. And I get to that in a little bit on that one then, right? But the article goes and talks about how the 2024, give me 1 second here, get this off the screen. The 2024 presidential election race brought unprecedented vitriol into public sphere, leaving many transgendered people feeling especially marginalized and vulnerable. What? Campaign rhetoric demonized the transgendered community, stroking prejudice and fear. When the election outcome now decided, the prejudice lingers, and in the transgender community, fear has turned into panic over the prospect that President Trump's campaign promises restricting transgender rights will become reality. Who is the number one people who have had the generations of racial hatred, racial racism, terrorism, racial racism, lynching, are the number one people who have had the most racial violence put upon them? Who again? What, trans? I don't think so. And for many people don't ask this question, what is the population of what we call trans? What's the population? Most people don't think about that, right? And by the way, it is less than 1% of the population of over 300 million plus people will be considered trans. Less than 1%. Do you see how that goes? Right? But let me sit there and play you this particular video before I continue. Now, remember this, right? Remember how it's like, oh my goodness, prejudice lingers, right? There's panic. But watch how this particular person talks to these particular black men. To suffer with. There's demons, bro. You can't even talk. Look at that. There's demons, bro. Oh, shit. To suffer with. There's demons, bro. Oh, but you're not gonna hear too much about that kind of stuff, right? See, that is some insultingness, right? Let's take a look at this. What does that say? Administration announced that the Biden Biden-Harris administration announces new actions to protect L-ness, G-ness, B-ness, T-ness, and Q plus communities, right? Protect LGBTQ plus communities from attacks on their rights and safety, right? Support LGBTQ plus kids so they can thrive, etc. You said it goes, right? You said it goes. And relating to this topic, right? Transgender Awareness Week, right? But when you start talking about the generation of anti-American Black for generations, oh, let's see, that predates centuries. Oh, we call trans. Trans is a newfangledness of genre. Show me where this transness was on plantations left and right for generations, where the master white was sitting there wrapping up people because they were trans. Do you see the embarrassing insultingness that? Please show where Jim Crow laws, right, segregation, right, lynchings were happening because people were trans. Do you see how this goes, right? What an insult. That they were kicking people off politics because they were transfers, right? And it took generations before another American Black personnel started to get back in politics. Huh? Please show me where trans, the war in the Civil War was because of trans. Huh? Or because of L-ness and G-ness and B-ness and Q-ness and I-ness and Q-ness and 3-ness and 5-ness and Z-ness, whatever it is. You see the insult. The Civil War was because you had the northernness of certain numbers of Caucasians, predominant culture that did not want the expansion of slavery to come forth from the South, even though the foundationist of slavery was also happening in the North. This is why it's so important to know history, right? So there was no transness in the Civil War. There was no transness in the American Revolutionary War, right? You see how this goes, right? But there is an agenda going on. So when you have Black History Week that came forth before any other cultures that have copied Black History Week, Black History Month, because there was no other people that had the Black History Week / Black History Month before that, right? But unfortunately, means within American Blacks allow people of other cultures and backgrounds and a terms lifestyle category version to insult Black Americans' history by minimizing and diluting that. Right, as I said, you see again on this picture about the Biden-Harris administration announced new actions to protect LGBTQ communities. Right, you see how this goes, but at the same time, you got people that want to act like that's not what's going on. But at the same time, you see in front of your face what was going on, right? But talk about anti-American Blacks. That's been going on for centuries. Oh, get over the past. You see that's the insultingness of that. Let's look at that other video one more time.
Miss Hellfire. To suffer with. There's demons, bro. You can't even talk. Look at that. There's demons, bro. Oh, shit.
But we want to talk about that, right? Oh, no. They don't want to talk about that part. Of course not. So continue with this article. It talks about how basically November the 13th to the 19th is Transgender Awareness Week, right? And it talks about how there is a significant fear of more anti trans legislation as a result of this election. Watch the key words before that. There is a significant fear of more anti trans legislation as a result of this election. What did I sit there and just show you about the Biden Harris administration about wanting more protections for LGBTQ plus? You get the point, right? There's a game, it is insulting us, right? But let's continue for a second. Actually, I'm gonna stop right there. Well, you know what? No, let me read a couple more things in this article. There is a feeling of rejection and lack of support, and sometimes those negative stigmas become internalized, and they feel even more marginalized and alone. What in the chameleons, tadpoles, poop does that sound like? Right? Again, what we call trans, and is it insulting? And it should be insulting to certain type of black trans, but unfortunately, internal self-hatred goes along with non-trans numbers of American blacks by the millions as well, with few exceptions, because it's like certain small number, minute, because remember the trans movement or the trans genre is less than 1% of the entire 300 plus million people within US, right? And you got people acting as if there's some trans demonic phobia going all over the place in the US, and they only make up less than 1%. You see how this goes, right? See how this goes. But let's continue. Give me a second here. What's this? I want to play something here. Let me show you this other particular person who could be trans or within the illness of genus or penis. Anyway, you get the point. Could be not. But the aura about this person.
American, male and female, social media influencers who decided it was cool to sell out your community to back Donald Trump because the MAGA white supremacists love you because they say, well, I can't be racist because the black person agreed with me. You're bottom feeders just like Trump is. Many of you have the audacity to talk badly about Dr. King that he didn't represent when he represented. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? A civil rights icon. Trump attacked John Lewis. Half of you don't even know who John Lewis is.
This fool, right? This fool. They don't know the hell they talking about. It is an insult. Now, again, personnel can make their own thought pattern of looking at this fool and see, oh, well, there might be some, within that genre of illness or genus or venus or cuteness or whatever the heck it is, right? Could be. And if that's the case, it is an insult. But again, right, it is allowed. There are millions within American blacks that allow this prejudicial, right, somewhat racial racism hatred from certain ones within certain parts of the predominant culture, certain parts within the illness and genus and venus and cuteness and whatever it is and plusness and whatever heck it is, the ones it's applies to, right? That have anti-American black, the ones that have the anti black trans, and unfortunately, there are certain ones within black trans that don't get it through their skulls. That they are hated first, the ones that are hated first because they're black first. And supremacists knows this. But let me sit there and I'm not going to do that again. Let me just play this other particular video. Now, what you understand. Now, before the transness movement came along, right? American blacks were still going through what, right? But at the same time, Black History Month, Black History Week, and Black History Month is, oh my goodness, get over the past, right?
Formed their own party. The 7 Republicans who walked out of the Democratic convention formed Delegates who walked out of the Democratic convention formed their own party.
The Southern revolt against President Truman reaches its climax at Birmingham under the states' rights banner.
The so-called Dixiecrats nominated the South Carolina Governor Strom Thurmond as their presidential candidate.
There's not enough troops in the army to force the Southern people to break down segregation and admit the Negroes into our theaters, into our swimming pools, into our homes, and into our churches.
Now, did he say the N-word race because they were trans? Which there's no such thing as trans like that. When Strom Thurmond, who became the governor of South Carolina, who was super segregationist. And by the way, there is also a video that showed, by the way, Biden at this particular dinner that was saying how basically Strom Thurmond was a friend. But you don't hear anything about that too much, do you? Right? You do not. So let me show this other particular video that cannot be shown enough. Remember, I was in there reading about earlier about that article, right? About the let me read this. I'm gonna go back up again. About how the 2024 presidential race brought unprecedented vitriol to the public sphere, leaving many transgender people feeling especially marginalized and vulnerable. Campaign rhetoric demonized the transgender community, stroking prejudice and fear. But at the same time, when you say, well, what about American blacks who have been for centuries that have experienced the most violent, the most racial terrorism acts upon people, they're getting no reparations, right? Do you think numbers of personnel within various trans, within the white trans movement, you think they care, right? Overall, what black folks are going through? Of course not, right? Because again, there are good people and there are bad people. I can care less about what a person's background, what they do. I literally can care less. It is when people sit there and try to force a movement upon American blacks, right, to accept that. And then there are black trans that don't understand that they are being used themselves as well, right? And very few of them knowing that they are being used, right? But watch this.
Be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No, because whatever benefits that black family will benefit that community and society as a whole in the country.
But at the same time, you heard us say Kamala Harris, I ain't going to do anything specific for black people. But what I said then showed you earlier about Biden-Harris administration that was sitting there trying to do more protections for LGBTQ plus. See, this is why, again, this system loves that they know American blacks do not sit there, are not very much researchers, right? They know that, right? And so give me 1 second. I want to sit there and show you something too. Give me a second. Give me one moment. 1 moment, hero.
Of the 4B movement, ladies, get into it. I also plan on no more DL men.
As a feminine gay man with a pussy, not a fully support the 4B movement, and with that in solidarity, I'm gonna further enforce. I want to talk to the dogs, the girls, the gays, etc. Leave these DL men out to dry. Delete them from your roster permanently. If you hadn't done it before, now is the time. Make that stance today. When women pick up that rose and leave them in the dust, they're going to come to us. Let them sit with their thoughts and their miserable mindsets that led them to vote against our rights and stand on the wrong side of history, and just let them stand there and get all the blue, coldest balls in the world. If they didn't want to vote blue, let them have the coldest blue balls of their entire life, and I hope it hurts like hell. I do love this pumping red lip gloss from NYX, though. Y'all see how pretty that is? Gorgeous. What's crazy to me is there's always some type of Republican politician, old white man, or person who is super Christian religious that love to be at the glory holes and all the meetups. They be on Sniffies, Grindr. They know all the things just because it's things that they dabble in because they aren't able to express their truest self. And that includes the silent brigade of bisexual bigots who love to stomp around Nashville in their cowboy boots and be all online with each other, and then love to scream Trump, Trump, Trump until it's time for them to shower together and make some money. Because they've been indoctrinized in different type of cult-like behaviors that tell them the truth, things that they desire are wrong, and they, get their rocks off by like telling us we can't live our lives because they hate to see people having their own independence and agency over their body and liberation. And
that's enough of that. That's enough of that on that. So you see the point that this is ridiculous. So again, you have black trans people, right? The ones this applies to, as you see also on this particular video I showed you, that they are being used as well, right? And so here's the thing about it is that it's an embarrassment because American blacks are the number one people that are used for other people's benefit, other people's agendas, right? Which includes trans. There was somebody, I'm not going to go into the name, there was somebody that was on one of this show that was dealing with the Orange is the New. Some people know the show I'm talking about. How this particular, anyway, a woman of blackness, should we say, that was used relating to transness, right? Give me 1 second. Oh, let me go back and look at this again. This particular woman, you know what? Forget that. Quite possibly the most famous trans celebrities is actress and activist Laverne Cox, who is primarily known for her role in the Netflix series Orange is the New Black. Cox has the distinction of being the first transgender performer nominated for an Emmy in an acting category. You see how this goes, right? As an activist, Cox is credited with having a large role in the national discussion about transgender people in the U.S. You see how this goes. What an embarrassment. You got people that don't even realize that they're being used for the trans movement, right? Again, who have been the number one people in Americanism for centuries, who have been the most hated, racially terrorized, racially discriminated, racial hate laws, segregation laws, right? Enslavement, right? By the uncalculable number of multi-millions and millions and millions, right? Kicked out of politics for generations, right? And told, get over the past because they were trans, right? Of course not. Telling this game it's a brilliant game, but it is an infantile game, and it is insulting to the American black ancestors. It's like that fool that I was saying earlier, one of the videos I was showing. This fool had the nerve to sit there and bring up John Lewis. What? And because, however, black folks that voted for Trump, basically they were racist. And he had the nerve to bring up Martin Luther King, right? And he got the Martin Luther King that got threats, right? For doing what? Being nonviolent, right? He still got threats, right? Still got threats. So this fool, who, some people will look at and say, oh, he might be from the trans movement or gay movement or whatever movement. I'm just giving an example. By the person's aura, the one that the winner earlier, and have to sit there and have the mouth to milk his mouth to bring up the great MLK and to try to sit there and equate. Basically, if you vote for Trump, basically it's like it's an insult to MLK. What? Right? And bro, John Lewis getting his head knocked in Selma, Alabama, the greatness of Selma, Alabama historicness, right? He didn't get his head beat in and women getting ran over and stuff like that by racism terrorists that's happened to be enforcement, right? Well, that was not protecting and serving. He wasn't getting their head beat in and ran over stuff like that by horses because they were trans or they were gay, right? Or they were intersex or they were lesbian, right? And so it's an embarrassment that multi-millions of American blacks allow people to play these little dastardly games, right? One last video I wanted to show you on this. Watch, I'll probably get a darn commercial on this kind of stuff too. Ugh. Let me give it 1 moment. This is the last video. Right.
What's wrong with variety? What's wrong with diversity? Diverting from one thing to another. Well, maybe nothing, but let's examine it. Examine it for what? To see if it is an improvement over what you already had. And if so, justified by showing, by example, where's the improvement? Which one of these? See, when you start talking about homosexuality or lesbianism, these are not just abstract words. These are talking about you have to do certain things to qualify. So what are these things that you do? And which one of them is an improvement over what has been done? That's just like a person might come around and say, well, hey, I used to kind of be attracted to people, I've had several wives and all like that. Even had a little incest, every now and then, but I finally came to the conclusion that people ain't where it's at all. I'm in the bear. You say, what do you mean you in the bear? I'm into bear. I go out in the woods and I chase me down a bear. The bear ain't chasing me no more. I'm chasing them. I have found that that's a wonderful alternative. After all, man, let's face it. Look at these marriages and divorces and whatnot. I don't have no trouble with the bears. I used to didn't think of anything about bears except just going to the ball game, But I found out that, man, if you really snuggle up to a bear, you'll never want to go back doing nothing else. Now, where'd you get that idea? Well, it just came to me one night. Tired of these women. In fact, people was telling me, well, if you don't like women, get you a man. Well, I'm tired of them too. So I'm in the bear. See, now you might laugh, but it's going to come to that if it ain't already. Because there are some people into that. Yeah, they call it, what do they call it? Bestiality?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, see, that might be a wholesale thing. In about another 10 years, they say, well, hey, this gay and lesbian thing about played out, man, ain't where it's at. Man, everybody's trying to preserve the bears now. I'm trying to get me a panda. Now, what is the point that I'm making? It's a lots of things that the mind can do. The mind is extremely inventive and extremely flexible. But the basic question is this type of activity an improvement? And if so, why? Otherwise, why are you coming around asking black people who don't even have a roof over their head that this is what they should be pushing now? They don't even have a decent school, or a decent job. But now you want them to join the gay rights movement. And that should be their priority. We should drop everything else and make that a priority. I don't see the justification at all. They have some white people who came around years ago and started calling it the rainbow. Kind of, you might excuse the pun, tailgating Jesse Jackson's rainbow push for civil rights. And then they got to saying, well, what is this all about? And when the question was asked, they answered by saying, well, it's another division of civil rights. Yeah. It's all the same thing. Discriminating against gays is the same as discriminating against blacks. And a lot of black people say, wait a minute, it may sound like the same thing, but it ain't the same thing. But they were able to shout all of that down. It is the same thing. Why is it the same thing? Because I said so. White supremacy in action again. Always, because I said so. See, but that don't, it sounds like it could be right, but it's something that still don't add up. It ain't the same thing. It is the same thing. Trust me. No different. Discrimination is discrimination, which is another word that people should pay attention to. Everybody discriminates every day. You discriminate when you decide to ride the bicycle to work rather than catch the bus. Now, does that say that you're discriminating against the bus riders? So that word discrimination, I don't even use it because everybody discriminates. It just means choosing. But what is the key? The key is it a choice that's constructive? When you start talking about black people's plight now, see, that's a different thing altogether. Is it constructive or is it non-constructive? Because it's got to be one or the other. Is it an improvement? Now, we already have a mess with the male-female thing, but you would have that anyway under any system that's unjust.
There's a big secret being hidden from drivers, so listen up before this video gets removed. If you're being insured by any of...
But now, are you making a bigger mess, or are you straightening out all the mess that ever was? I have no reason to believe that this is helping to straighten out anything. It's helping to make it worse, particularly when you start doing it right down to the grade school level. Start saying that this is something that, and this is just what you children need. You're 7 years old, and this is what I need? I don't even know what sex is yet. Now you're telling me about alternatives to sex. Well, let's start out so that your mind will get straight. Now, Jane has 2 mommies, thinking about getting 3. Now, what benefit is this to Jane? Well, she learns diversity at an early age, diverting from what to what in order to do what. Oh, well, we'll know when we get there. Don't ask so many questions. Oh, no. I got a lot of questions. You know, show me how this is a what? Improvement. Which one of these acts? See? Well, you know, being gay. Don't you understand what being gay used to mean? Being happy. I mean, you know, but that ain't what it means, I don't think, when you say it. So you're talking about acts. Show me by demonstration the very act that you're talking about that's going to be an improvement. And then show me, tell me in words how this is a great improvement. Tell me, you know. First, do the act with me looking at you. And then after you finish the act, you'll say, now that's act 1 of being gay. You ain't gay unless you do this. See, you know, there's several things you can do to qualify for being gay. So you got to have qualifications. Otherwise, what's the difference between you and everybody else? If you don't do something different. So you got to do something. So whatever that difference is, you do it. Then you get before, you know, come to the blackboard with the pointer and whatnot, and you say, now, number 1, this is an improvement over whatever it is you all are doing out there. It's not just an alternative. And I'm telling you this because you should be on board for supporting act number 1, which I just demonstrated to you. This is what you actually ask people to do. See, in other words, stop just talking in circles and whatnot and talking in innuendo. Get the crowd there to come and take their seats respectfully, and then march down the aisle and come up to the podium and have your bed up there or whatever it is you're supposed to have, and do what it is that you say that everybody should be taking an interest in and supporting. And then as you do it, you can turn around and face the crowd every now and then. Just take a little break. Say, now you saw what we just did. Now, this is an improvement over what has been because of, and then enumerate the improvements and ask for questions and answers. Because if I'm in the audience, I'm going to say, now, how is that an improvement? I just saw what you did from start to finish. I sat here and watched it for 15 minutes until you completed it. Didn't say a word. Now I want you to tell me how that's an improvement over what? I think that what I'll hear is silence.
See, that was a very powerfulness on that situation video about the greatness of Mr. Neely Fuller and the gentleman that was making these hip hop cartoons. Very, very, very creative. And so this last particular, it's not a necessary video, but just a thought pattern on this particular clip. Now, before I do that, remember, there are good people and bad people from different cultures and backgrounds, and there are some good people within certain parts of the L-ness or G-ness and B-ness and Q-ness and all that movement. But it's not about ones that are good. There are ones that are bad, and there are ones that have an agenda, and there are ones who sit there and use Black LGBTQ people. And unfortunately, with very few exceptions, there are mostly ones within that movement that do not realize that they are also being used as well. And that's what makes it an insulting part, because again, LGBTQ plus whatever it is, show where they have had centuries, right? Centuries from being enslaved, and the master was RAPED them, stuff like that, and producing different kind of children. Please show where the LGBTQ plus movement, etc., has sit there and had a civil war that was started based upon them. Of course not. Please show after the Civil War where the LGBT movement was kicked out of politics for generations, right? Until the mid 20th century. Please show where that happened. It did not happen that way. So it is an insult, but it is a brilliant game. And unfortunately, there are quite a number of ones within Black trans and Black LGBTQ plus that do not understand that they are being used. But you know what? Before I play this other particular last clip, let me show the first video I showed before I close this.
To suffer with. There's demons, bro. You can't even talk. Look at that. There's demons, bro.
Oh my goodness. Can't this cannot be played enough.
To suffer with. There's demons, bro. You can't even talk. Look at that. There's demons, bro.
That was the insulting of spitting upon these particular, I think blacks, whoever else it were, which they were showing on whatever the sidewalk, and you saw this particular person that would have fell under the trans category, right? Right? A man that has trans to a woman, be it the fullness. Well, no, obviously not fullness, but this happened to identify as a male, but identifies or was born as a male, but identifies by their clothing as a female, right? And you see how they came across. Do you see the salivating that they did upon whichever the pictures or something that these people were showing, some of this black person was showing on that? So again, it is an insult that the thing with this Transgender Awareness Week, but at the same time, you're supposed to have sympathy and all this kind of stuff like that. But Black History Week, which predates Transgender Awareness Week, in which Black History, then it became Black History Month from Black History Week, which then predates any other type of cultural months and cultural weeks that they other people have copied. So it is an insult to the American blacks that don't understand, and there's quite a number of ones who don't understand by the millions that they are getting insulted every day, with very few exceptions who know the game. So where's this last clip I wanted to show on that? Give me one moment. Oh, and by the way, look at this here. Warning, mauling, drain, trucking, delivering wagons are not allowed in this park and are prohibited by city ordinance. Ben Campbell, Mayor, Negroes keep out. Did that say because you're trans, keep out? No, it didn't say that, did it? Didn't say that. How about this? EQ. You see how this goes, right? Waiting room for colored only by order of police department. But again, they got people that plays this little silly demonic tactic. Oh, you don't like enforcement because of this. Man, that person go to hell with that tactic. Excuse me. Because they tactic on that.
I don't believe in segregation. I believe in slavery.
They didn't say that because of what? They were trans. Right? See, the power of history is very powerful on that. And this system loves that they know American blacks by the multi-millions are not into history and the power of history, right? And certainly do not teach the youth black kids to understand the power of history, right? Where's that last video on this? Give me 1 second here.
Let us remember that we are not brutalized because we're Baptists. We're not brutalized because we're Methodists. We're not brutalized because we're Muslims. We're not brutalized because we're Catholics. We're brutalized because we are black people in America.
And so that the point is also, you may just go and add American blacks are not brutalized because they, you know, some of the ones that are trans or some of the ones that are LGBTQ movement plus, right? Because again, that movement, that genre makes up less than 1% of the whole population. I think it was like only 0.5, 0.6 or something like that of 100% of the population, right? 0.5 or 0.6 out of 100%. Less than 1% of the population out of 300 million identifies as trans. But at the same time, American blacks are also supposed to run in and be the saviors of not only just the trans movement, but the L-ness and G-ness and B-ness and Q-ness and LGBTQ plus, et cetera, et cetera. You're supposed to jump in and be the saviors for that movement as well. You see where I'm coming from, while other people ain't thinking about that like that. And again, it's an insult to a certain number of ones that are in a black trans and certain ones within the black LGBTQ plus. It is an insult to numbers of them who are being used as pawns and don't even understand as well. So I thank you for tuning in to the Real CP Show.
Well, yeah,